Welcome, everybody, to tonight's open door reading at the Poetry Foundation. My name is Alex, and I am the Building and Events Manager here at the Poetry Foundation. I use he, him pronouns, and as a visual description, I am a white cisgender man. I have black glasses and hair that is brown with some blue streaks in it, and I'm wearing a gray shirt sitting in front of a bookshelf and another piece of wooden furniture behind me. The Open Door series presents work from new and emerging poets and highlights writing instruction and poetic partnerships. Each event features readings by two Chicagoland writers and two of their current or recent students or writing partners. Tonight, we are excited to hear poetry by Mairead Case, Erika Hodges, Kenyatta Rogers, and Israel Solis Jr. We would like to begin by recognizing that the Poetry Foundation building is situated on the occupied original homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa nations, among other Indigenous nations. Indigenous people continue to live here today, and Chicago is home to one of the largest urban Indigenous communities in the United States. While we are meeting on a virtual platform, it remains crucial that we recognize the stolen resources and land that enable us to connect tonight. We gather recognizing that some of us are settlers on colonized land, and that this land acknowledgement is one small part of disrupting and dismantling the colonial structures in which we are living.
Hi all, happy National Poetry Month. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Noah and I am the events assistant at the Poetry Foundation. I use they, them pronouns, and by way of visual description, I am a white trans person with blue dyed hair. I'm wearing a pink shirt with a choker over it. And I have a few accessibility notes before we continue. To access live captioning, click the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. Additionally, tonight we have two ASL interpreters with us, Mona Jean and Moxie, who will alternate and be spotlit alongside speakers throughout the event. We would like to set an intention to create a relaxed virtual space together. Feel free to do what you need for your body and mind to be more at ease. Let's take care of ourselves so that we can better take care of each other. Take a second now to make yourself 10% more comfortable. And now let's get things rolling with our first reader, Mairead Case. Mairead Case writes and teaches in Denver and Chicago. Case is the author of the novel Tiny, See You in the Morning, Tenderness, and To the Teeth, a column at Entropy. She publishes and edits widely, with work most recently appearing in Poetry, JSTOR Daily, and Los Angeles Review of Books, and at Public Media Institute, Half Letter Press, and Maggot Brain, where she is the associate editor. She teaches at Naropa University, the Colorado School of Mines, Dallas, Denver, and inside the Denver Women's Jail. Case holds an MFA from the School of the Art Institute in Chicago and a PhD from the University of Denver, and as an abolitionist, has been a legal observer with the NLG for over a decade. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Mairead Case.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here in such great company. I hope everyone's doing well. For real, please be comfortable in your body. If you've also been like hunched over a screen all day, make sure you've got your shoulders relaxed. I'm gonna start reading from Tiny. Oh, and I'm a white woman. I have a sleeveless black dress on and shoulder length hair, and I use she, her pronouns. Say it. Here we are. Now is the time. There are always multiple times and possibilities. The work is to stay with them. It is dark. Tiny sits on the roof with her hand in front of her face. She can't see her hand, which is also her mother's hand. Their nails are painted green, green for money, for growth without pain, even though Tiny doesn't really mind being hurt. She knows it's temporary, like the cold right after jumping into a lake, and even when the pain is everywhere. But every color stands for something, whether people understand it the same way or not, and that is comforting. It connects. Tiny painted her nails herself. She runs her palms up and down her thighs to warm them and brush away wet grass. It is windy, and though Tiny can't see that either, she can see the slick flickering over everything and hear the wind in the maples. This city is always raining, or between rain, except for 2 weeks in August when everything is a clear, firm-edged blue. Every few years, July is like that too, and then everyone talks about it, about how remarkable that is. It is remarkable for everyone to feel the same sun on the same day. Everyone has the same warmth on their faces. On other days, the light in Tiny's city bathes everything in vinegar like it's a print ready to be soaked and rewound. People who think talking about the weather is boring have never had to be out in it together. Tiny slides her right hand into her shirt so that she can feel the bones in her chest. She cups the tissue and slides her thumb across the place where the ribs branch from her sternum. If Tiny's breast was a clock, her thumb would mark 10 o'clock to midnight again and again. Sometimes her thumb cramps. This is one kind of thinking. Tiny thinks about the soldiers who cut off their breasts so they could shoot arrows more accurately. In this way, they would always be soldiers. It might be like being a parent. Both situations are also physical facts that affect a person's ability to feed and to eat, to work and to travel. They affect how we are in the world irreversibly. Where is the soft dent in your stomach? Why is that red line on your chest? Tiny thinks this way when she misses her mother, who died when Tiny was a toddler. In science, Tiny read that babies are born with 300 bones in their bodies. Only those bones don't start growing until the second trimester. So when Tiny's chest formed, she was closer to being her mother than not. Babies are parasites first. Tiny used to be a blob. She remembers freckles on her mother's arms, but Tiny isn't sure if she remembers them from photos or from actually being held. This city is too cold and gray for freckles. Tiny's mother lived in another place when she was little. Before Tiny was born, after it, and even now in death, Tiny's mother tells her daughter that she is a brilliant and strong person, resourceful and capable of absolutely everything life presents her. Tiny is a helper, not a fool, and that is a fact written in stars. Stars exist even when people can't see them. Sometimes planes are mistaken for stars, but stars exist. Stars exist. Tiny thought she couldn't open the door, but she did. Now she is thinking about nothing and her mother because Kelly is dead now too. That's it. That's the story. Tiny thinks it again and again, in and out of her body and time on the wet, windy roof. Tiny knows her life is different now, again. For as long as she can remember, Tiny has felt pulled away from this house. It isn't a strong pull, but it is undeniable. Like her third eye is also a metal and magnets hover in the air outside. This is not a question of fate or forces or even restlessness. It's a small headache and a question about belonging. Tiny's home does not exist yet, or else it exists multiply, and in either case, she must leave here to find it. This is a fact. It is not something to fix. When Tiny stands in front of something, she faces it. Tiny is the tree growing towards the light and holding the dark. She is the plant growing on that tree, sponging food and water from the surrounding air, and she is the parasite eating the tree itself. Something here will kill her too, but never, ever completely. Tiny will look at death for so long that she isn't afraid of it anymore. She stared at death so long it could have opened its eyes back suddenly in the dark. It could have made everything that wasn't Tiny into darkness too, like a girl waking up inside a whale in the ocean. But it didn't. And so, at first in a rushed lurch, and then normal as always, Tiny lives. This is a responsibility. She takes it very seriously. When living feels impossible, Tiny looks at the pictures of sheep, orchids, bees, lemurs, jellyfish, coral reefs, seals, moss, and microbes she drew inside of her mother's lab notebook and watercolor pencil. Tiny presses her hands into roofs, chair cushions, and the earth. She spreads out her fingers and pushes them flat like she's about to arc into a handstand, a rainbow. Tiny drinks water and imagines her lungs full of color. She breathes out, imagining that color filling the room. Because Tiny is responsible and holds memories, she exists and belongs. Because she is no longer afraid of that pain or contradiction, she will threaten people, or else they will treat her like a child. To them, Tiny will be a paradox of green fingernails, botanical faith, and buoyant heart. She will remind herself not to always apologize or explain herself or rationalize. We do not need to apologize for existing. Tiny has never seen a coral reef in person, but she knows they exist. They are nests, apartments, museums, public housing, fields, individuals, and populations all at once. Their tones depend on sun, chemicals, creatures, and who's looking. They are, in as many ways as music can fill a room and the bodies inside it. Tiny doesn't want to understand anything completely, ever, including herself. She would rather wonder a little bit or wonder. This is like wishing to live forever. People want to understand, and because of that, some of them have a hard time not killing everything. Sometimes it's by accident. Sometimes it's necessary or for preservation. But to completely understand something, it must never change. There must be a null set. And so people explode mountains. They slice open chests. They name land separately from what it does or did or is, and especially when it never needed to be different in the first place. But how do you look at a body and say, when she was little, she wanted to be a fire truck? How do you say that love horrified them too? How do we see home? How do you? Desire changes like rings on a tree. Sometimes different times and states are true at once. Sometimes people don't want to show everything, or they can't because they are wrestling it, or wondering about it, or laughing, or sidetracked, or blinded. Sometimes there aren't words. When Tiny thinks about all of this, she feels young and old at once, and a cluster of white lights in her wrists and chest, humming. When she was alive, Tiny's mother knew everything anyone could about hearts. She performed surgery on them and studied their rhythms. She traveled and she asked questions. In one small room with plastic yellow light, Tiny's mother looked at hundreds of thousands of frozen slices of heart and then labeled and dyed them by herself. She taught Tiny how a cardiograph is actually a map of a heart moving to escape the body and then back into it. If that line kept moving, Tiny's mother said, your heart would burst out of your chest. Tiny used to imagine this whenever she sat down to eat with new people. Plop, your heart's in the noodles. Hearts are brown or yellow and brown, depending on the amount of blood and fat. Tiny knows this fact, but still imagines them as pink and red, slick and mysterious. The ability to hold both truths is a strength, like seeing a cell phone tower at sunset and thinking it could be a ghost chandelier instead. It could be. By now, scientists can see and name every single part of a heart, but sometimes the muscle still surprises them. This is also true for brains, which aren't muscles, even though people talk about exercising them. And it is true for death, which happens, and still people know very few absolutely sure things about it. Sometimes that truth is a scary movie to Tiny, and sometimes it is a warmth in her chest. It exists outside of her, and it doesn't. Tiny used to read obsessively about all the bad things that can happen to a heart. Hearts can die in sections, they can swell, they can beat like this, ruz, ruz, ruz. For Tiny, imagining this sound is like hearing a car on wet maple leaves. It is urgent but not frightening. It is the way home. Once, Tiny went to a birthday party and the horror of mourning lowered itself around her head like a hood. She hadn't expected it. It blocked out the streamer colors and all of the sound. After that, Tiny and Izzy promised each other to always be real people. even when their teeth got softer, when they have too much money or too little, even when they are distracted and need more time, even when they are the adults, they will always work to change and break open and mourn and love, to remember when they need to and forget when they don't. It is important to try and fail and try differently. As if Tiny could ever forget her mother, she can just look at her hands. It is almost a religion. This promise is both hopeless and hopeful, which is why it is so strong too. Her voice is in her head, all of them. Thank you all so much. Thank you, MJ. I'm so excited to be reading with Erika, who is a friend of mine from the poetry world and also from the Chicago Community Bond Fund world. Thank you for reading, Erika. Oh, and thank you too. Erika was the last friend to read this book before it went off to press. So I'm grateful to you for walking with Tiny too. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mairead. And we will be putting some of Mairead's links to some various places you can find more of her work in the chat. And we'll also add those at the very end of the reading as well, if you'd like to see them again at the end. Thank you again. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Erika Hodges. Erika Hodges is a gender-expansive poet and performance artist living and breathing somewhere between Brooklyn and Boulder. They are a graduate of Naropa University and an MFA candidate at the Pratt Institute. Hodges's work can be found at Flag and Void, Calyx, the Adirondack Review, and the Poetry Project, among others. A 2021 Can Surratt Residency Fellow, as well as a Brooklyn Poets Fellow. Hodges work as a poet's assistant, editor, Hodges works as a poet's assistant, editor, and archivist. Their work and life is deeply devoted to queer love, troubling borders and binaries, and the idea of lineage and poetry as a sort of home. They will be pursuing their JD next fall, where they hope to continue the work of shaping language that can move us toward liberation. And now let's please welcome to the virtual stage, Erika Hodges.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to the Poetry Foundation for hosting this, and to Noah and Alex for the labor they're putting in, and also to Mairead for, I'm so honored to be reading beside you. You embody like a radical friendship in your writing in person that I'm really honored to know. I'll be reading from my thesis manuscript that is almost done, fingers crossed, entitled Breathing Room. And so, yeah, here I go. I opened the book with a quote from the Invisible Committee. We would have liked to have been brief, that a poem, a song would suffice. We wished it would have been enough to write revolution on a wall for the street to catch fire. A poem, a song. To imagine a skyline is to consider cracking. We start with the boroughs inside out. To imagine a city is to remember disaster, the sight of red sun, a splitting fruit, pomegranates, each nodule a version of life, self-contained, tethered by a fleshy, inedible center of bitter whiteness. Rotten fruit, falling from the sky, cracking open, landing at the top of our throats. To remember a landscape is to arrive at a stoplight and allow it to cycle through several times until you're ready to walk. To write on the walls. To walk in a city is to imagine what it might be if this line was just sky, nothing else, just sky, curves, no lines, a soft convex where the poverty lives, a blurry convergence, A separation of cities, an easy forgetting, buttered macaroni 9 days straight, the nothing on the 10th, the hunger following you around the gas station, the counterman too, just as many threadworms, parasites, a city inside you following a whole street parade of starvation and feeding, following you, but turning to concrete when you speak. This ignites rage in you, which makes warmth, so you stay alive. I stay alive and introduce myself to the city. I'm unrecognizable with a new shirt and a $12 burrito. To fight is to sink into a city, becoming like the city, intricate and mostly interior, though seemingly a destination spot as a means of survival. They're screaming murder at us. We laugh and stay alive. They are using chemicals and guns. We embrace to stay alive. They insist on a they. We say, come join us, but first look at us. The city says, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, then turns to concrete. She said, this is my city and your city is not my city, but there you are. To breathe is to look up from the city, see the swarm that is the city, not to fall into the city, but still be of the city that is such a swarm. To be as honest as possible, since the music has not yet come. I am not invincible. Don't touch me. To look up is to text you, to ask, how is your day, as a way to gauge what this city might be doing in other parts that are not my city. But your city, and as much as we can, it is our city. A fight that is not with each other, but with the architects. We wished it would be enough. To leave the city, if we all did it one day at once, is to disassemble a city and to make it a habitat for anything. A new city always comes after. What if this time it does not? To disassemble is to keep walking until you know the city and your mother calls. She asks about the sugar factory that her house was flush up against. You say, no, Ma, this is not the same city, but I know the factory, or I remember. To call is a beeline away around this disintegrating subway to get to an inaccessible part of the city of myself. And sometimes I answer and sometimes I cry, let me be lonely. To cry is to catch fire. To wail, to burn, to weep, to blaze, to dry heave, to sob, to become ash and drift in the wind, except those who have seen ash know that it does not drift. It takes flight, lifting from your palm, bye, Dad, I love you, quickly away from you before you can take it back. To become is to imagine a city brand new, built up all at once, glistening, fallen, soaked sneakers, making sure we all got home unfollowed. What came next was not recorded. The event had passed. The memories evaporate from the pavement, bringing the bulldozers while we mourn our losses to imagine a sky with no line. And I'm just going to interject for a moment because I forgot to give a visual description. I am a white, non-binary person that uses they, them pronouns. I'm wearing a yellow sweater and I have brown short hair. I'm in front of a rattan screen and I have matching lipstick and nail polish tonight with two-tone glasses. And now back to my poems. When you say you love the ocean, you mean you love the shore. I know this because when I want to speak of vastness, you do not call or come over. You wait until it's over to visit, until my never-endingness is back under the covers. Clear coast, easily accessible beaches, all the way down. This is for Carousel State by Sam Gilliam. When you separate the event from the structure, remove the frame from the colors, you get loose fabric hung up, suspended in the air, rising above the Berber, reaching out of the dirty skylights to move and tatter, to live inside time as opposed to attempt-controlled anti-history, terraforming the metropolitan to a green and grassy hill, an undoing of the city, strung up like drapes. Been evicted twice. It's like walking out into an ice bath, into an amphitheater, a museum, stuffed heads and glass eyes following you, your favorite red boots padlocked inside a bedroom that is very suddenly the banks. Prayer to Saint Jude Thaddeus. patron saint of lost causes. I'm ashamed for looking at the beautiful dresses. On my way here, I did not know I was coming from that square, men in all sorts of blues and blacks. I yelled, I am not here for that. I am not sorry. I would like to have hinges again. I would like to be flexible again. I would like to wake up thinking only of poems, not their voice on me. But if I had to make it short, I do not know how busy you are or if you are someone to count on. But if I had to make it short, I would like to be as impenetrable, as carefree as what is etched on my back as a warning to wives who are not given proper time to change their minds. I would like to laugh in scarlet against shame. Be realistic, demand the impossible. I thought it had been raining. How long have I been standing here? It was the lights that made the sidewalk glass. Escape plan. I would become very small and spectacular. I would get more sleep and pay attention to every detail. I would not answer the buzzer for anyone, demanding definitions for the scope and structure of my love. I would move very slowly and all at once like a jellyfish floating, snot through salt water like tears, always of the body, a byproduct of the industry inside. I would put that machine down like an animal that had outlived its joy. Dear Marxists, why of all things would you own a factory? Let them have it. There would be bruised peaches. I don't want to write a fantasy, and I don't want what we got. Who gets to say what the good life is? To be dirty, tarred up, gum on the sidewalk, to peel up off the concrete, bathing in the mirth of taunting, the two-dimensionality of carceral living, to be shoved up against the barricade, vaulting ice, watching for zip ties, forcing ourselves to laugh so they can see, and actually having a good time. And in between liberation, inhale, in hell, there's heaven. I would choreograph several dances, all yearning to define what it means to perform excess. I would walk away in the middle of the dance to do something else and never come back to it. I would scrape together all the money I had and buy movement with it. I would get some wheels. I would feel very of the moment. I would cut up all the contents of my wallet into very small pieces, mostly triangles. I would glue them in interesting patterns and shapes on the sides of housing developments and shipping shopping centers. That is how I would escape the city, but only if it were just me leaving while you all stayed. If we were to leave the city all at once together, it would be different, a longer conversation, a dialogue on safety and care. But if it's just me, I don't need every poem to do all the work. I can let other poems around it explain some of the gaps, make up for reticence. Together, we would have to make the perfect poem. One that did every single thing in every line. We might argue about it until it all fell apart. We might give up after that, spending years and still inside the city, wandering around in puffy jackets that got more gray every year around the collar and pockets. But it is our only jacket, and it has become a part of us. Then we would get fed up and shove a bunch of shit in a backpack and head out individually. We would get to the station, we would buy a ticket with scooped together change, and when we needed to pee, we would get off in a field, in a place that reminded us of remembering. And you would be there too, picking some flowers you hoped were lavender, and I would say, what are you doing here? And you would say, same as you. The lost possible, or an absence of lungs. Before heading home, a friend roasted a chicken for a family they nanny, Metro Pass, carved up glass, and a knockoff sedition, howling as she moves by lamplight. Another drove to the desert to sing and weep at the saguaro to get better before going back, ducking gunshots all summer. Another fell in love with her John, then running the numbers over and over, trying to find rent. He doesn't pay now, but she's in love. One friend is dead from opiate overdose, Travis. A stick and poke peace sign on his chest, still in the ground. One keeps collecting things he finds on the street, letting them stack up. I ask him not to. It freaks me out. Reminds me of my mother, but I get it. Several friends only wear jackets with big pockets, making dinner together, an improvised meal from stashed cans. One has such persistent joy, but only smiles by folding skin, never showing teeth. One carries a list, streets they can't go down, bars that are safe, cutesy weapons that look like keychains in case they get clocked. Most of them are honest when asked, how are you? And so it's done sparingly, a depleting spell. We are all here sitting in these same converted rooms, adding sweater on sweater, ignoring the thermostat, one-eyed watching, reheating the same coffee, breathing out slow. Our lives, serialized firsts of the month. One friend texts me, I'm scared. Another one tells me the revolution hasn't even started yet. One friend holds me and then shifts so I can hold them. This will be my last poem. Winter 5. And when the winter ceased, the poppies came. Spring again or something else. But winter did not cease, or it has not yet. What is the difference if we are all locked out of futurism, the room where it's going down, a revolution of many tomorrows, unfinished, half-eaten, false-started, washed up? Where's the poem fit into all this ice that hasn't thought of us in centuries? It's the same cold blue through sheets of plastic and purification, 3 layers of medical-grade cloth soaking up the sludge, a frosted and oiled film over the liquid, priming the city for a lighter, more yellow shade of gray. The city that persists, a skyscraper that plunges as a determined muskrat might, burrowing through the earth, pushing itself up chest plate first, a shining ambivalence, a triumphant landscape of obsequious steel. Underneath all this winter, though, is still the stoop and the Modelo and the shared joint, the past due phone bill, the stolen square footage, a feeling between architectures, our arms around hips, our heads leaning on shoulders, making shapes that resemble a new kind of skyline, one that requires walking, overrunning even, rage even, no message or slogans, but hands clenched between kin, our streets pulsing up and down the veins of our soft realities, so soft they bounce back after the brutality of billy clubs and mace, so kind they demand of you what seemed impossible to give in the old city. Silence, free, unstolen joy, at the top of a 5th-story walk-up, a little room to breathe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erika. Those were really beautiful poems. You can find Erika on Instagram at ErikaBot. We'll put that in the chat. The next poet who's reading is Kenyatta Rogers. Kenyatta Rogers is a Cave Khanum Fellow and has been awarded scholarships from the Breadloaf Writers Conference. He has also been nominated multiple times for both a Pushcart and Best of the Net prize. Rogers' work has been previously published in Jubilat, Vinyl, Bat City Review, The Volta, Pink, Make Magazine, among others. He is a lead teacher and lecturer at the Poetry Foundation's Summer Teacher Institute and Chautauqua Institution's Young Writer Institute. He is also a co-host of the Sunday Reading Series with Simone Munch and serves on the creative writing faculty at Chi Arts, Chicago High School for the Arts. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Kenyatta Rogers.
Hello. Glad to be reading here. Glad to be reading with all my students after this too. I'm going to read some poems, most of them new-ish. Labyrinth. I've lost something and I can't describe what it is. And what if that's my job? To say how empty an absence is. Like rolling 2 gears together and maybe teeth are missing in one or both. Or maybe trying to grind 2 stones that are polished and smooth. I've always liked a little grit. But sand in my shoes or in my hair is like shattering a glass in carpet and using a broom to get it out. I can't describe what it's like to sit on opposite ends of a park bench and not know how to get any closer. I miss so many things, and I looked through my piggy bank and only found pennies. a pile of things that are almost completely worthless, a shoebox full of sporks, a well with a bucket and a rope that's too short. Sometimes in my room, it's so dark that if I wake up, I won't know it's morning or night. Imagine being someplace you know so well, but are lost and don't have any idea how to get out. The rule is, put your right hand out, lay it on the wall, and follow. Sometimes the rules don't apply to all of us. I don't want to sleep here again tonight. So I have this poem that references DMX, and I think I need to like read it. And also, because DMX is like in critical condition at the hospital, not looking very good. He might not make it. But let us pray for DMX and Seth. Let it all begin with a prayer and end without a blessing. This is how the world will end. Without a pot, let alone the window. Here's the man running with nowhere to go, the broke bicycle, a split, a locket, and a split contact lens. Let us consider the lobster now more than we did before. When the writer chooses to love language more than the bed they rest in at night, let something be everything and nothing all at once. Find the star waiting for you to notice it. Pray for Earl. Pray for the dog that prayed for us. Our shadows are always there, even if we don't notice them. Wave at your shadow. Love your neck. Raise your hands and neck as high as your voice. Blow on the butterfly to tell it you notice it. Pray for me and let us ride on a wave. Nobody's watching us right now. And if they want, only let them hear. The world is still ending. Let the sun swallow us whole. I'm looking to see if this next poem references anything that's relevant, but I don't think so. So we're just going to jump into it. Oh, the title of this comes from Keith Murray, The Most Beautifulest Thing in This World. The most beautifulest thing. I had a dream that I read a poem to a woman and cried at how beautiful it was. And she cried at how beautiful that was. And I thought how even my thoughts are a problem. A white woman said she would never teach me how to whistle. And I only asked because she knew how to whistle. And maybe I should just say how beautiful that was. When I was at the bar and Greg was spinning, a woman walked by me and found a spot to dance, not with anybody or looking at anyone. And if right now you're wondering if knowing who Greg is important, I will just say no. But it helps. And yes, Greg is important. My ex's glasses I found in my bathroom that she told me to throw away. The ability to pivot, sleep. After we broke up, I told my friend Kyle, and if you're wondering, yes, you need to reference what I said about Greg. Yes, we were drunk. Yes, most of it is a blur, but the events aren't really important. But back to my dream. What do you think that woman looked like? How about the woman at the club? How about if I tell you that neither of them looked like the woman who, like a hunter, watched the hound run off to bring back what was shot out of the sky and realizes, I don't want to come back. What's beautiful about that is a beagle standing by a lagoon, so maybe I'll just stand here for a while. The breeze feels nice. I can smell the petrichor. Two more. Thunderstorm. When I was 36, I experienced a thunderstorm and thought God was talking. Instead of a flood, it will be fire. Instead of fire, God spoke to me in the rain. He woke her up and she said, "It's beautiful." And then I cried in a van. I flew over a lake and cried again. But I'm not afraid. There's many reasons the clouds should block out the sun. This is my last poem. There's some irony here that my last name was Rogers and I wrote a poem that references Mr. Rogers, but I grew up in front of the television, so watched a lot of TV, and that was one of the shows I watched on television. And yeah, so in the show, Trolley shows up and he goes through this tunnel and they go to the land of make-believe where King Friday and all of his friends, there's an owl in a tree and some other shit, and then they come back to like the regular world. It's like this weird like crossing the threshold situation. King Friday and the land of make-believe. This may not be the time to offer this, but I'm not as good as you hope I'll be. When we're in a tunnel and I'm driving, I'm sure it would seem imaginary. When I ask to lie on your floor, I really want to say, can I stay and watch you chop up green onions? You're better than me. I don't know if you ever heard me say that. On your phone, you keep a picture of the human brain. When your father was deep frying a turkey, your mother told me to keep playing music. Maybe now I finally know what love is. Taking pictures while your dog wears glasses, trying to describe what stuffing should taste like. In my friend's basement, you gave everyone Polaroids of themselves. Then we laughed at a poster of the human body. And this is the part where I sit on your couch and watch you teach your friend merengue. This is where I try to prevent myself from smiling, and I hope Trolley doesn't show up to tell me it's time to go home. Thank you. Oh, my student's reading next. I got all like quiet, like nothing was gonna happen that's important. I'm excited for this. Israel Solis.
A little more about Israel Solis Jr. He is a 17-year-old Latino born and raised in Chicago. He will soon graduate from the Chicago High School for the Arts, majoring in poetry. He plans to study journalism and one day publish his own poetry collection. Most of his writing centers around illness, life, death, and the things that follow death. His inspiration comes from being raised in a very religious household, witnessing death, and questioning existence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Israel Solis. I go by he, him, and I'm wearing a blue t-shirt, and I have really curly hair, and behind me is a bunch of posters in my room. So yeah, before I start reading, I would just like to thank Mr. Rogers for inviting me to read with him, and thank everyone who came. Noah and Alex who set this up, the other readers, Erika and Mairead, and the interpreters. So yeah, thank you. This is my first poem. It's titled 7 Trillion Stars. The sun makes me want to drown, somewhere far in the unknown parts of the ocean. The sounds of the waves and our heartbeats. I hear the world's heartbeat here. Night comes. There's a twinkle in your eye. When we go deeper into the darkness, I know we are something that's better than the crashing and exploding of our universe. You know that I love you, and I know that there's no one else out there like you. We decide what's best is to learn to fly each other out of here. 2009. The buzz of the meter. Rainy days, silent hallways, stuffed and cramped with the sick. The metal doors open and shut, and in the back room, someone's weeping. The rain gets heavier. I see the memories shine in her eyes. I only went there once, but I can still hear the low chatter and the stifled coughs. I hope to never go back there. Yet, years later, I can still hear the buzz of the meter. Planted. Behind the shadow follows the smoke from the tired mine with a burning hole. The image that glows with the beauty, the joy, the boy, and the I love you. And he says, I love you too. You wouldn't know how to care, how to breathe in the fumes of anger. You'll never know how to tell me where to plant my feet when I fall. But that's not your job anyways. Sleeping on a cold bench. I was tired, so I stopped running and slept on the bench at the park. It was really cold that morning, and it was one of those days I wish I could just cough up all the bad things in life and move on. I laid down and watched the tree branches above me sway in the wind. The sun was still behind the clouds, and I hoped for the sky to give me something. I wasn't sure what I wanted from the sky that day. As I sat there, I started crying. It took me back to December nights, where I cried in my best friend's arms. It was cold and snowy. The snow was in my face and on my head, and seeping down my neck into my back. But the waves I felt that day were so strong, I hadn't even realized it was snowing. The sky always seemed to catch me crying. After a few seconds, I wiped my tears away and cradled myself like a baby on the bench to keep the cold from hitting my face. Before I knew it, I fell asleep. When I woke up, the sun was hitting my entire body, and the dew from overnight had dried away. I laid there for a while, taking in the heat like a flower blossoming. The sky didn't speak to me in words, but I knew it heard me that day. Untitled. We drove up to the city at night and found the place where you stayed, and we walked around the city and watched the city lights. I spent the night next to you, in the house where you grew up, and next to you, I miraculously woke up. We took the lights from the stars and the radio towers out of our dreams. We went all the way up to the small town, where we heard life could be simple. But when we got there, we were greeted with foggy air and the wind blowing, like the devil's rage in the mountaintops. We clung to each other, and you held my hand. There, in the storm, you almost got to start feeling me, and I felt your breath on my flesh, and I saw life and death in your eyes. I felt my heart beat harshly, but there, I finally felt like I was breathing free. Under swaying trees, we fell asleep and had the same dream. The stars were bright on an island where I planned to spend time with you, and there I gave up on everything. We found Precious, and we laid under a blanket and cried to the furious sound of the waves. 2 bodies on Earth. It was intense just getting to be here next to you, and you were trying to get me then, so I let you in. We didn't have to talk to feel the power of the moon. We both knew we were just floating in the same space over this slowly dying rock, and we felt safe. There's nothing left except certain death, and that was comforting under the roars of this world, was when I stretched my hands out to you, and you held on to me. He held my hands while I drove. It was late night after church, and he let me hop next to him and ride shotgun. but I always wanted to wear my seatbelt. But I had always never wanted to wear my seatbelt, even when he didn't. It bothered me sometimes, but he said, "What's the rush to leave me, kid?" And I just wanted to be older. I wanted to dive into adulthood and drive a car, late at night, feeling the cold wind clawing into my shirt through my hair. I wanted that so badly. I guess he could read my tear-filled eyes, because he stopped the car and sat me in his lap and made me take the wheel. Now that I was in control, I wish I still had my belt on. I wish I was still in the shotgun, safe from the terrible bustling of the humans, safe from the chaos and anger that a person can carry in their mind. I could feel sweat running down me like bullets of a machine gun. But he held my hand and said, "Go." And we went, and I drove through the quiet night. I was older. I was him. I was gliding through all my dreams and hopes of being here, and he laughed, and I was no longer afraid. And this is my last poem, Eating in the Dark. My back faces the light. A plate with a strange combination of food sits before me, staring right back at me. Spaghetti and ham, refried beans, and a cold piece of meat. I never thought a cup of water could look more dull than it does now. Another night alone at the table, everyone in their house on their own time, in their own worlds. This is the 6th time this month that I've had to sit alone in the dark eating. Footsteps come up the stairs, slow and heavy. The metal from the stairs has come loose, and when you step on them, they rattle. Mechanical snakes on the floor, slowly making their way up to me. The walls painted black by the shadows that make their way into this onto this quiet kitchen, like thieves in the night. The doors opened, and there she stood, tired, empty, skin tight and rough. I know she's hiding. I can't look up because I know she won't say anything, but I utter a hello and goodbye in a simple phrase. Something I find harder and harder to say as my youth rolls by. I love you, Ma. I meant to share some warmth with her, but without looking back, I feel my words travel narrow and hollow. I can feel her head drop down a little lower and her shoulders become more tense. Te amo también. Her voice, cold like ice. Chaos in the air from the dreadful silence dismantles her love before I can reach it. She walks away, back into hiding, into another dark corner of this quiet house. I take a good look at the food, and I decide I'll skip dinner tonight. Thank you.
Thank you again so much for your reading. And thank you also to all of tonight's readers, Mairead Case, Erika Hodges, Kenyatta Rogers, and Israel Solis Jr. Let's all take a moment to give some virtual claps and virtual snaps to them at the end of the evening. Thank you also to Vitac for our captioning and our 2 ASL interpreters, Mona Jean Cedar and Moxie Coles Felix. And a big thank you to all of you for watching tonight's reading.